Look, we're winning this thing. We're winning this thing. Now it's not won yet. It's not won yet. But think of the privilege. Over the next 72 hours, we get to shape not just the next 4 years, but generations to come for everybody.
A group of Senate Democrats is warning that election results may not entirely be known on Election Day, and that's okay, so long as the delay is not the result of voter intimidation, suppression, or other efforts to undermine the electoral process. Yes, we're looking at you, Donald Trump. One of those Senate Democrats, however, Minnesota's Amy Klobuchar, joins us now. She's working to ensure we have a peaceful transfer of power as chair of the Senate Rules Committee.
Good morning, Senator. Thank you so much for being with us. Tell us what is within the purview of the U.S. Senate when it comes to ensuring that peaceful transfer of power.
Well, I would say, for one thing, it is the Senate and the House that are in charge of making sure the ballots are counted. We all know what happened last January 6th. So to put people at ease on this, knowing that Donald Trump is trying to undermine this election, in nearly every rally, he talks about cheating. He talks about, in my mind, what Tim Walz has just said is right. If everyone votes as they should, if everyone gets to the polls, we're going to win this. It's going to be close, but we're going to win this. He knows that, so he's trying to undermine with over 100 lawsuits. He is every single rally questioning the elections. So that is why we actually changed the law in the Electoral Count Act, make sure that instead of just one person, one member of Congress objecting in each chamber, it is now 20%, that you can't have these fake electors. The governors have to certify. There's a whole number of protections put in place. But the other thing is exactly what Michael said at the beginning, and that is that it's going to take a while to count some of these states. They all have different rules. And in this report we issued, we show that Pennsylvania doesn't start opening and counting the ballots until the day of the election. Michigan's changed their rules, so at least you can open them up for jurisdictions over 5,000. Wisconsin doesn't start counting the early ballots till the day of the election. So that's why you see some delays, and he will try to play on those delays, Trump will, to question the election. And our goal here is to make sure the votes are counted and everyone has a right to vote.
Senator, can I pick up on the point you just made? Because I think it's critically important for the country to understand exactly what you and your fellow senators have done already. But more importantly, given what we are hearing coming from the streets, from boards of elections, the efforts that we see play out in places like Georgia and other areas of the country, where they're trying to cook the results early, right? What are you, in addition to the Election Count Act, what other measures are you and your committee looking at in light of what you're hearing now going into this election cycle that you've got your antenna up and watching for over the course of this election playing out?
Well, right now, like everyone out there, I am focused on the next few days. I think someone said that people are nauseously optimistic, okay, about what's happening. I think that best characterizes it. So it's a little hard to see beyond that. Beyond that, we are starting to see these digitally altered and ads that are created by AI that are lies. In a governor's race in Indiana, the Republican put up an ad with fake no Gasto signs that were completely manufactured, put it in an ad, eventually had to take it down because of the Indiana law. I'd like to see changes on that, and I have bipartisan bills to do it. Secondly, I think we have to do more to protect election officials. We're going to be doing all we can, and police, law enforcement, Democratic and Republican governors are going to be doing all they can to protect those election officials. But the kind of violence that we're seeing, whether it was the attempted assassination attempts, the attempted assassinations on the former president, or whether it is the kinds of language and things that are used against election officials and that Trump himself used against Liz Cheney this past weekend. This just raises the temperature, makes people scared. And I just think people need to understand that the election, by our own accounts, is still secure. No matter what he says, it's secure, and people should not be afraid to vote, and they should go out and vote.
I do believe your last point is very, very important because some might suggest that talking about the very real threats that present folks at the polls, the poll workers, right? Like we've all seen videos on social media. People have gone to the polls and gotten maybe a little aggressive over the last couple of days and weeks while early voting has happened. And then you hear these, we all remember what happened in 2020. And so some may suggest, oh, we shouldn't talk about these things because it will keep people from voting. But people need to go to the polls regardless. Like, I want people to vote. I think we all here want people to exercise their right to, in our representative democracy, to participate. And your point about election workers is very well taken, Senator. I am someone that believes that I don't think we're going to see another January 6th type event at the Capitol. I think it is these state certifications that are in the crosshairs now of some of Donald Trump's allies. Is this something that the committee has discussed and talked about? Are you talking about this with other officials across the country? Because that, I believe, is the ball game this time around.
Yeah, and the Electoral Count Act, the changes to that bill, which was supported on our committee, the Rules Committee that I lead, before it went to the full Senate vote, by every single Republican, including Mitch McConnell, except Ted Cruz. Are you surprised? He did not support this. But what it did is it said, as I mentioned, the governor has to certify these results. So if a rogue state legislature or legislators try to create fake electorals, the governor would have to certify them. And we think that's, of course, less likely to happen. If you have a rogue governor, then there is a set process for going through the federal court process that we didn't have before. And then finally, which isn't relevant here, we make clear that the vice president cannot overturn the will of the people, which will not happen. But we put that in there because of what happened last time, where the former President Trump and his allies were claiming that Vice President Pence could simply change rules. So all of this is going on. But I do think the number one thing, having just been in Pittsburgh yesterday, is that people are voting. You see these people, I cannot tell you the energy on the ground. I cannot tell you the number of people who come up to me, and Michael knows these people because they are Republicans or former Republicans at diners, in airports, whatever, and just go up to me and say, I'm a conservative Republican, but I can't vote for him. They're whispering it, and they come up or they give a thumbs up in front of this happened to me 5 times in a diner in Wisconsin. They went in a red area. They go like this. So I think that there is a whole group of women that are voting that you haven't seen before. There are business people who don't want the chaos. This is why you're seeing this Iowa poll that came out yesterday that shocked everyone, that she's ahead. And then because they're not polling as much there, this is my view, and suddenly these people in Iowa are answering the poll, and you get more accurate information. And whether or not she wins in Iowa, it just shows the kind of momentum we're seeing. And then finally, those democracy Republicans and independents who showed their strength in 2022, who just do not want to go back to this assault on our democracy.